It is Thursday, 10:17 p.m. here on the East Coast. Welcome to Twitch Line. I am your host, Hodo. Joining me, as always, is my best friend and co-caster. It is Thursday, Acorn. 10:17 p.m. here on the East Coast.
Well,
Welcome.
sir, just got back from dinner here with the family. Um, I guess we can call it a birthday dinner. That's coming tomorrow. So lovely time, good food, some pie. God bless America. And now I'm back home. We're just hanging out. So it's a good evening for this freeform. Nice and
Yes.
chill. Good to
Yes,
hang
and
out with people I like.
the heat's supposed to break tomorrow, too. So, the
We
heat
need it.
wave. Yeah. Heat wave's supposed to be gone. So, it's going to be a good day to spend a birthday for you.
Yep.
So,
It'll be nice. 90 something degrees today and super high humidity. Nobody is happy. So
no.
it'd be good to be able to go outside and breathe.
So, as always, if you're willing to send us articles or things to look at, you can send us emails over at twitchlinelove@gmail.com. You can tweet us on Twitter at Twitchline. Also, we're streaming live to YouTube right now, so for everybody on YouTube, hello. But you can also visit our archive of videos also on YouTube, so they are available there. You can click below if you are watching us on Twitch. You can go directly to our Twitch for our YouTube channel, or if you're on YouTube, it is Twitch Line Love is the name of the channel. Just search that in your bar. And if you want to take us to go, we are available indeed on SoundCloud, and you can take us and watch us on SoundCloud. Excuse me. Watch us, listen to us on SoundCloud on the go, on your phone, on your tablet, or any mobile device, and anywhere you can install the SoundCloud app, we will be available. All you have to do is search Twitchline. And it's Freeform Thursday, Mr. Acorn, which means that we talk about anything today. So this is one of those times in which we're allowed to just basically talk about whatever we want regarding topics of the day. So it's one of those things in which I love Freeform Thursday because I get to talk about anything I want. And it's one of those things in which if my life was more interesting, I would think I would have more things to talk about. But I'm sort of boring. So the only interesting thing that happened to me today was, my love of fast food. Well, I was at a fast food joint today, having a relatively late lunch. And what ended up happening is I ended up at an Arby's at 3 o'clock because I ended up on a conference call till about 2:45, going over budget numbers for next year. And if anybody knows anything about Arby's, is that they have something called the Arby's Happy Hour. It's where you can buy a whole bunch of things for $1 between 2 and 5 o'clock. I've never actually gone to it before, but because I was having such a late lunch, I decided I'm going to try it. Well, I order what I order, and I'm waiting for my food, and there's this little old lady who buys a tremendous amount of Arby's, and she has a cane, and she's really old, and there are fast food joints that are really just about they're like bastions for old people. And I don't know what it is, but Arby's is one of them. Roy Rogers is another. And McDonald's in the morning, if the McDonald's is right next to like an old folks home, is because they have like senior coffees for like 35 cents or something like that. So, but this cute little old lady had like this plastic bag full of Arby's. She had like 3 drinks, which were in a carrier, and like she had to fill them all up and had to put it down, and she couldn't get to her car. She was walking with a cane, and I felt really bad because there were a whole bunch of people like sitting there watching her do it, and literally like she has to put the drinks down and she puts it on the counter, and the guy's like, "Oh, I have to come back with it," and I see her just walking really slowly with her cane and her giant bag of Arby's because I think she's buying it for like 3 drinks, maybe 3 people, possibly even more than that. And I go over there to her. I was like, "Excuse me, madam, do you want me to like help you with the drinks. That way you don't have to make 2 trips back. And her eyes light up, and it was like, oh, it was really great. It's like, oh, thank you so much, and blah blah blah. So like, I take the drinks to her. I get these like looks from the people who are standing, waiting for their, I guess, happy hour sandwiches or something like that. Not necessarily bad looks, but they definitely give me like the weird. And you know me, I can tell reaction from people. These people look like they thought that it was like the oddest thing to do. And I walk her to her car, and I help her, like, put the bags of food in her car, and then hold her drinks and make sure. And my food hasn't even come up yet, since there were actually more people than I thought there were at an Arby's at 3 p.m. And she was just talking. It's like, oh, thank you so much. It's like, my knees aren't so good anymore. Growing old sucks. And I was telling her about how my mom has a bad back and can't walk anymore. She's like, well, you tell your mom that she raised you right. And I was like, oh. So, and then I walk back in, and everybody's still looking at me, and I still don't understand what the hell's going on. So I'm just like, okay, these people are just assholes. And I go in, I get my sliders and my French fries, and inside my bag is an extra slider. So, the world pays. You be nice to people, and you get, sometimes the world pays you back in karma. But I thought the weirdest part about the whole thing was the people staring. And I wanted to ask you, like, is it so unusual to do a random good deed for a random person nowadays that people will actually look and just sort of like stare at you for doing it?
Yes and no, I think. Uh, so in those situations, if we're looking at this from like a psychology point of view,
Hmm.
um, they say that like there's something. What's the word? It's like bystanders. I can't remember exactly what the words were, but basically, if there are people around, like the more people around that share the responsibility of stepping in to do something in one of these situations, let's say that someone fell down and they need help getting up. If it's just you and that person, it's easy enough to reach down and take their hand and pick them up. But if there's another person on the other side that's sort of there and could do it, you're a little bit less likely to take that initial step. You might think that they're going to do it. And if
Hmm.
there's more and more and more people, it's sort of dispersed. Diffusion of responsibility, I think is what they call it. In this case, you also have an added element, which is sort of like an altruistic thing. And I don't know what motivates people to do that, but it is it's kind of uncommon. You know, 50 years ago, it's pretty standard.
I know.
But these days, helping someone out is, and again, I think most people just sort of like they're just trained to watch these days, or if it's something spectacular, they'll pull out their phones instead of jumping in to help, and that's maybe that says something about our society right now. But yeah, I've had the same thing. I was in the car with my sister driving, and some guy was alongside the road, and he this guy's car was broken down. And he's trying to push off the side of the road, and there must have been 10 cars behind him and 10 cars in the next lane over. And I saw it, and I just jumped out of the car and ran up and started pushing on the back of his car to get him out of the way quicker and to help him out. And the second I did it, someone else joined.
Hmm.
But before that, no one was doing anything. They're just letting this guy push his car.
Let him
So
suffer, and let us
yeah,
see. That's the weird part, right? Like, it almost takes like some other person to do it, but it was so weird because when I offered to do it, she made this little joke. It's like, you better tell the guy that that he knows that you're not stealing my drinks, and she has this little chuckle. I thought that was really funny. And then the people, just like the people that are waiting for their food, are all just like giving me these weird looks. Like, it's like, I don't know. I just felt odd because I was just all I was trying to do was, because this little old lady was really having a hard time walking with her bag of food, and her cane, and I was like, all I could think was like, man, that could be me in like 30 years. It's
two
like
months.
2 months. I was like, I would want somebody to help me. I don't want to go back and pick up my drinks. It's like, I have to help this lady. And it's just like, I don't know. It's like, I just feel like, and I was thinking to myself as I was eating my extra slider in the car, on my way back, because you can literally stuff those things in your mouth. Um, it's like, man, the world would be a better place if somebody just did a random nice deed. And it doesn't have to be monetary or anything like that. Just like carrying drinks for somebody, or like helping somebody up, or giving somebody something they dropped or something every day. Just to give somebody like that little good feeling to keep go on their merry way. Because I gotta believe that this little old lady probably had a nice little story to tell about her wonderful trip to Arby's today, and probably, hopefully, made her day a little brighter. So I was like, I don't
Sure.
know, yeah. So,
Yeah, it's nice to pass on the good feels.
mm-hmm,
Um, it's funny. I have a similar type story, but with a little bit of a odd finish to it. I could share
mm-hmm,
when I was living in China in Beijing. I was in an apartment building, and I was, I guess, the only foreigner that lived in that building. And as I was going out of the front door one time, there were two little Chinese ladies coming kind of behind me, and I stood there at the door, held the door open, and let them pass through. And they said thank you, and I said you're welcome in Chinese. And um, as I kind of walked away, one of them said to the other one, "Oh, what a nice guy! You know, what a nice person that was to do that." And the other lady's response was, "Oh yeah, it's because he's a foreigner." Like, holding a door in China is just something that doesn't really happen. And when you do hold a door, sometimes you're standing there for minutes because people just keep pouring through.
yeah.
So I guess it kind of like it hurts you in the end to do something nice like that because most people just blow right by.
Is it one of those
Um,
things where people take advantage? Because I've got this weird, like, assumption that, like, in China, sometimes being nice really doesn't pay off, based on stories that
yep,
I've read. How true is that?
it's very
Because,
true.
is it?
It's a lot of times being nice gets you taken advantage of. Like you set yourself up to be somehow abused or overused.
Mm.
So uh, most people kind of just take care of themselves and their inner circle. Usually, that extra help doesn't really extend beyond the family. So it's a way to survive. It comes from a history where that's kind of how you made it, and it carries on into today's society over there. So doing something like that will get you a lot of points from people who see and respect how people could do that. But you can't necessarily expect the same in return. And some people will see you do that might look at you as a target then.
Yeah. I guess it's like there's a little bit of naive me that believes that there is still good in people when it comes to doing nice little deeds and stuff like that. And there's always people
Oh,
who will try to take advantage of you. So,
right. And there are people that do this, and I'm not. It's not to say there aren't good people. It's just they are. Uh, they're also disincentivized to do these things because, and you see plenty of cases where someone falls down and hurts themselves, and then someone come along to help them, and they end up blaming the person who helps them up for their injuries because they're poor, they don't have any money, and they're not going to get any money, and they have this injury. And if they put it on the person who was seen helping them up or touching them or something like that, then they can actually get their stuff paid for, or they can get blood money or whatever you want to call it. So there are people that fake it or you kind of abuse the interaction. And
yeah, I
so
mean,
some people are like, "Hey, I'm not going to get caught doing that," and they just keep on walking. It's pretty
but
messed up.
it is messed up. But, like, how much of it is urban myth and how much of it is real? Because I've seen videos of it like that. But now with everybody with a cell phone camera, and with the cameras all over, where China is China, of course. I mean, gotta believe that people aren't getting away with it as much anymore, right? Because dash cams, for example, are so prevalent now, because you see those scams where people will jump in front of your car and lie down and say that you hit them with the car and stuff like that. And I know that um, in certain countries, it's actually required by law for truckers now to actually have dash cams to prevent them from getting scammed, and it's also part of insurance. That you can't be a commercial trucker anymore without a dash cam camera. And I think it's true in Russia where you see a lot of the videos come out, and I think it's true in some parts of Asia too.
It's definitely a way to protect yourself
Hmm.
if those things are pretty common. And it's not to say that you're constantly seeing this stuff, but it happens often enough that people they just know, right? So I've been in situations in China where I was pushed pushed away from doing what I was naturally inclined to do.
Hmm.
So if you see someone who looks sad, tired, hungry, poor on the street, and you want to give them a little money, they say don't do it because that person's not there. They're not going to get the money. What's going to happen is you're going to give them the money, and then the person who has them out there doing that
Is gonna get the
is going to
money.
collect that money from them.
Hmm. So.
And that's it. So you're giving your money to that person, that kind of scheming person. Or sometimes it's just not getting involved is it's just really strange. So one time I was having a lunch. No, it was dinner. It was dinner at a small shop kind of near the place where I was living with my Chinese friend's younger brother's no, no, her cousin or anyways, not a close relation, but
Hmm.
some connection to the family. I
Yeah.
was not very familiar with her, but we ended up, stuck in the same place and decided to go eat together. And we're sitting there eating our food, and some guys out in front, three guys out front, kind of dressed in black suits. Uh, they're kind of skinny, scraggly looking, but they still have their suits on. Started arguing with the waiter and ended up hitting the waiter, throwing their food at him, throwing him into the wall, and slapping him around a little bit. Not a full down beat down, but they started slapping around. And my first inclination is these guys are smaller than me. I don't care. I'll jump in and help this poor guy.
Hmm.
And his uh his cousin grabbed my wrist and looked at me like you're not going to do that.
No, 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 no. Yeah.
And she's like, it doesn't matter if you beat them up. If you don't beat them up and you get your ass kicked, you lose. If you beat them up, then you are in this neighborhood. You're not far from where you live. You're easy to pick out, and they might find you later. And if it's not you, they're going to punish this store. They're going to come back and beat the hell out of the waiter and the other staff. They're going to get their revenge somehow. So you jumping in now is not going to help him. Let him take a few slaps and get humiliated a little bit, but it's going to be over soon. They're drunk and they're going to leave. And that did not feel good.
Mm.
That was a hard thing to bear witness to and to sit still on because that is not in America you're taught like help out the underdog, get
Oh yeah.
do what you can do, and to do that really it was one of the many moments where I was in China and I like, yeah, I am definitely not home. This is something else.
It's different, right? I mean, like I think in most other countries, uh, though, like if a situation like that were to happen, I think people would jump in and actually help the waiter. I think it's in a few countries where it's like no, 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 you don't do anything, and that's weird. I mean, it's almost like you know me, I'm a huge fan of the I don't work here lady subreddit, and when something like that happens to somebody in a store, there's like a manager or an employee or even the police will come to stop it from happening because police will react to businesses calling them relatively quickly. And it just seems weird that like in that particular situation, those two guys probably had the good run of the place even if the police would have come and would have been like, the waiter was still at fault somehow. And it would have just been weird just to see, and it's just like good lord. And like doing nothing is not first nature. You want to, I think a lot of the inclination is like you want to help people, and then but prudence dictates that you shouldn't get up and do anything because it's going to do is going to cause you more problems, and that really sucks. It's just like you feel like a terrible person afterwards if you were to see that. I think like I mean, you felt really bad, right? I mean, like that's against your just like your instinct and stuff like that, just regards to what was going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's it's definitely like a morality check and
Mm-hmm.
everyone has this idea of what they would do in these kind of situations. And when you get into them, you find out what you would have done and what you wouldn't have done. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you disappoint yourself. In this case, I wasn't going to disappoint myself, but I was told that I was not allowed to do what I was inclined to do. And uh,
And was this in
all
northern
you can.
China or was this in
This is
Beijing?
in Beijing. This
Oh,
is
really?
Beijing. I mean, this is back in 2003, maybe
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Um, but I mean, old China, new China. It's a left and a right on the street between those two places. And when I lived up in northeast China, that was the Wild West. And man, got plenty of stories from up there I can share.
Yeah, well, that's northeast China at the turn of the century, pretty much, right? Like 2001, 2002. So, like, you know,
2001, yeah.
yeah, before like the real commercialization and the spread of everything in China. That's crazy. I mean, I wonder how much like the social credit score and all of that crazy stuff that they've enacted has helped personal behavior in
Yeah,
China.
that's big city stuff, man. You get a little ways outside of the big cities and that disappears.
Really?
Uh, I mean, I think the capital city of any of the provinces, you probably still have to deal with that. But if we're going back to that same city that I was in 2001, I guarantee you the same Looney Tunes stuff's going on the streets. And yeah, it's I'm sure they have more McDonald's and KFC back then when I went there. I think they had one of each. But and this is a city of 2 million people, which is a small city in China. But even so, uh, you know, it's just too many people to deal with and put into a system like that. Most people won't even show up on the radar. I imagine most people don't even have a passport of any kind. They just have the little their IDs that they can get them from province to province. But most people just stay in one area.
Well, that's very similar to the way the U.S. is. It's like, what was it at before 2001? I think only 10% of the total U.S. population had passports, and I think less than 20% had ever actually left the country before, because you have those border states up in the north that can go into Canada, and it used to be you just give them your driver's license from the United States and you can go in and out of Canada. You can't do that anymore. So, but like, yeah, I mean, like we say, you know, a country like China probably is like, not very many people have their own passports and can do stuff, but it's also very similar here in the United States, where, the whole middle of the country just, you know, they don't go 100 miles outside of where they live in most cases. Like, there are people who
Yeah,
have never really gone farther than that. And that is, to me, that's insane. But it is more normal than I think it is. And then
but you're also a city person,
that's
and
true.
that's things are different here, especially right by Washington.
Hmm.
But I mean, I just just jumped on the internet real quick, and there are all kinds of numbers. So what do we trust? But here it says um, 11% of people never leave their hometown. 64% of Americans have never left the U.S. That's just our country. You got to imagine.
Hmm.
I mean, we're one of the richest countries in the world. One of the most, one of the passports with the most freedom on it. You go to these other countries. I mean, there's a good chance you probably get to 90 something percent
Yeah.
of a population that never leaves. So, how much can you know and learn staying put? And not to say that there are plenty of people out there that explore on the internet and they find other ways and read and all that, but there is something to be said for taking that leap and putting yourself into a new world and taking on their culture, taking on their language, their food, their everything.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely opens your head a little bit.
It's still, I still get a little nervous, traveling overseas and stuff like that, where I am not very familiar with the language. So, like, going to places like China, when I went to Beijing, I did not like it. But that was also because I also hated the airport and the whole experience associated with it. But um, I felt in Japan, even though my Japanese is terrible, getting around and being like in Tokyo was absolutely awesome. In Italy, my I don't speak any Italian, but I speak Spanish, which means I can understand a little bit of the language. But I still felt a little weird walking around. So, traveling like that, traveling, and I can understand like how people can be a little nervous, like not understanding the language and going to places and stuff like that, can be very uh, intimidating. But you just sort of have to get yourself out there and do it, and eventually, I think you start to develop this love for it, and understanding like people around the world will help you try to get around and stuff like that. And I honestly hope that the 64% that have never left the U.S. I hope that that's because of the fact that like not because they don't want to, because they don't want to leave the U.S. or like they want to go but they just can't afford it or something like that, and are more worldly, hopefully like that. Because but I've met people who are just like, why do I need to go anywhere? My country's great. There's no reason for me to go to Europe or to Asia or to Africa, um, South America or whatever like that. And I just think that's so close-minded, and it's
Yeah, I
discouraging.
agree with that.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, there for even for the people who want to go, they're still going to have anxiety, fear, fear of the unknown. That's normal. But I think, like most things, if you have fear for it at first, once you understand it, either the fear completely goes away, and it opens up the possibility that you could actually enjoy that thing, right? So
Hmm.
just depends, and what your exposure is like. If you're treated well, most people that travel to Asia come back just gushing because they're treated so well over there.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
and you get over to Europe and eat some of the food there, and you're just like, wow, what have I been missing all this time? So away from home can be not just fun, but uh, it can increase your understanding of what's good about being alive in this world.
So I have a based on what we have just discussed, I have a little screen here that shows my top travel locations of where I've gone in this world, and I have my top four here, Tim. And if you can see if you are paying attention here on Twitch, the my top travel locations uh, around the world. One, London. I love that city. I think it is the easiest city to commute in ever. It is also English speaking. It is home to my favorite soccer team. And I actually lived there for an extended period of time when I basically rented an apartment out in the basement of this lady's townhouse for 2 weeks, traveling around like France and Amsterdam and stuff like that, doing cooking classes in Paris, and then coming back 2 days later, and then going to Amsterdam and coming back a day later and stuff like that, going to Scotland. It was fantastic. I love that place. Second was Tokyo. That place is also amazing, even though my terrible Japanese only got me so far. But I think it's one of those cities. I think the whole country is one of those places I would love to go back to and do like. I would love to do like a real month-long vacation in that place, just taking trains and going everywhere. I know your wife is a big fan of Japan, and I know that she's also a big fan of Korea, which I have never been to and I would be interested in going. Bali, which both of us experienced at the same time, I thought was very very cool. That was more because you and Emily were with me and Emily's friend Paris, and that was absolutely fantastic. Something that we had talked about in high school, and then the Amalfi Coast in Italy. For anybody who doesn't know where that is like south of Vesuvius as you get towards Sorrento, and then there's this like cliffside area that is along this really sort of pristine looking view where you're looking into the ocean, and these houses are and like the houses and the buildings and everything are built into the mountainsides, and you're driving along like cliffside with the ocean on one side and a mountain on the other, and it's really amazing. And there are these little towns that are like almost like embedded in the mountainside, and it is fantastic. Like I know, have you ever been? You've been to Italy, but did you ever have a chance to go with like our friends down to Amalfi, or did you never saw them when they were in Naples? Did you?
Nope,
No.
never managed to make it out there.
Ah. That sucks. What are your top locations? Like, if you had travel locations that I think that if you would say that were the best that you ever had, what would they be?
Okay. So I have about, um, I think I've been to about 25 countries now.
Mm-hmm.
And of those, I always have trouble making these kind of lists because, if I had a list for top five places for food, I'd choose different ones than if it's top five places for scenery. But overall, standout, amazing experience. I would say one of my favorite cities on the planet is Prague.
Mm.
I absolutely love Prague because it is just incredibly gorgeous. The architecture is beautiful. The it's a great walking city. The food's pretty good. I mean, it's not incredible, but well priced as it's not on the euro. They still have the kronas, I think.
Yeah, yeah, they're not, which is weird, right? They're
So
not in the EU, so therefore,
right,
like, everything is super
but
cheap.
they're real close. So it's actually it's like still safe, still nice. Um, it- the people, I don't know if I would say they're friendly. They're not really friendly, but they are beautiful. So
Mm-hmm.
they're like you're walking down the street, you're like, oh, she could be a model. Oh, so could she? Oh, okay, everyone's here is a friggin' model. Wonderful. Um, and they have big squares,
Mm-hmm.
huge squares, and there are sausages and beer, and it's cheap and it tastes good and smells good, and there's a lot of stone walkways and things. We when we were over there, we crossed a bridge and people were walking their wolves. Basically, they look like dire wolves, and it's like a wolf club.
Mm-hmm.
So there was like 12 massive, massive wolf-looking dogs, um, and just overall, it's just really lovely. I really enjoyed that.
Hmm.
Uh, Iceland, number. Now, I mean, this is not in sequential order
No,
either.
this is just a
Yeah,
list of, yeah.
and Reykjavik itself is fine. I don't, if you went to Iceland just stayed in Reykjavik, you're doing it wrong. But and I'm not going to ask you to try to type that in there because that's wrong. Um, but I would say Iceland was just incredible. That's God's earth. That's the way a place looks when man doesn't do too much to it. And so there's a lot of beauty there. People are very friendly. It is horribly expensive. I mean, ridiculously expensive. Uh, did you want to have a McDonald's combo? $22.
That's
Like
insane.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We were there for 4 or 5 days and spent like $200 on gas. And, it's just
everything
wild.
everything's imported, right? I mean, like,
Yep. Has to be.
it has to be because they're just right there. Interesting story coming out of Iceland today. Mike Pence, Vice President of the United States, supposedly visiting Iceland. The Prime Minister of Iceland, and I quote, "I'm sorry, but I do not have time for Mike Pence, for as I will have other obligations, so I cannot,
Sweet.
so I cannot host the Vice President of the United States." So that coming out of Iceland today, I thought was very funny.
High five. Yeah. So I would say that Iceland, as far as scenery goes, there's nothing that's going to beat it. Amazing waterfalls, amazing glaciers. We got on a boat
Hmm.
and saw this ancient ice just right up close. Went to an island off of the coast where it's like a puffin island. There's tons of these cute little birds flying around and high winds, cold even in the summer. But there's natural springs so you can go keep your body warm and have a beer in the water while the frigid air blows over you. Lots of fun there.
Hmm.
Um, so that's it. Prague, Iceland. Uh, I mean, I want to say that one of my third favorite places to visit was Belgium. Anyone who knows me knows that I love some good quality beer.
Hmm.
And Belgian beer, there's just nothing that's going to beat it. And the alcohol content's pretty high, so you don't have to go too far with it. They do great mussels and French fries and waffles and all kinds of good stuff. So the food's there. I went during the wintertime, so they had the Christmas market, and
That's when I
they
went
had
to Belgium, and I
yeah.
was
And
yeah.
did you have the glühwein? If anyone, if nobody, if the listeners out here don't know what glühwein is, look it up, find a recipe. It's like like a mulled spiced wine, and in the winter, it's incredible. Warms you up and gets you where you're going.
See, I don't know.
Um,
We walked around Brussels. It was Shay and Brian and I, and we spent a couple days in the city. So this was after Thanksgiving, I think, but I can't remember if we had. I don't think we did. We spent an inordinate amount of time in a beer shop, where we were basically like looking at all these different like Belgian brands and stuff like that, and we were just amazed at what was available. And we were like, you could buy it all by the bottle. So
yep.
essentially, we were like going through. It was like it was almost like Christmas because we were just trying to
Oh
figure
yeah,
out
it's a
like,
candy store, man.
yeah,
And they have those too, right? The chocolate shops,
mm-hmm.
which I mean, they look like Willy Wonka style. You're walking in there like, spinning around singing a song because it's a wonderland of sweets. Same thing with the beer. You go in there, you could spend a half an hour looking at all the different labels. And there was one beer that I bought there. The single bottle of beer was $26, and I bought it because there's a monastery, ways out of the city there,
Mm-hmm.
that once a year, if they're so inclined, they'll make beer and they sell it to have just enough money to last them until the next time they need money. And they don't need a lot of money because they're monks, but that year they had made it. They made a batch. They sell it until it's gone. And when people know that they're going to sell it, they go out there, drive out there, and they get in line and they wait and they hope that they're getting up there to get their beer in time before it runs out. So these beers are few and far between, and they're really really special and they taste really great. I don't know if it's a double or triple, but it's kind of a heavy dark beer.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a bottle of it, and I mean, I don't know that any beer is worth $26, but it was a damn good beer.
Yeah.
I did enjoy myself. But they know how to do it there. There's again, it's very friendly. People, everyone. You don't have to worry about language or anything like that. The city's fun. It's full of festivities. The main square, they'll put up lights, and I don't mean like lights in the windows or something. Like they will make the entire massive building a bright color, and then the color will move all the way around the square, and then there'll be next color coming through, and there are glowing seesaws in the middle of the road that anyone could jump on a seesaw with a stranger, and everyone's half drunk and eating sausage and just living their best life.
Yeah.
So Belgium's pretty badass in that way.
Well, the funny part about it is listening to you talk about Belgium and its beer. Um, Being that I've known you for so long, uh, beer was not something Acorn here was very happy with, especially early on when he was experimenting with alcohol. Um, you were very, very, uh, let's just say, uh, you would favor things that were a little more fruity and a little more sweet.
Dude, I was a poissoir. What can I say? It had to be sweet, otherwise I wasn't gonna drink it.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
this is like what I was like 18 years old or something.
Well, the thing about it is like, there were parties in high school where people were drinking beer and doing stuff, but I never got invited to those parties because,
Oh yeah, I was a loser.
yeah,
I ain't that.
I never got invited to those things. But like, even I didn't drink beer. The first time I ever drank anything was, it was like one of your mixed drinks or something like that. It was like that peach stuff that you always had. So like I didn't drink beer for a long time either, and then eventually it's like, well, now I just drink everything. So eventually your taste buds die out, and everything starts to taste okay, and beer becomes acceptable, and you realize that
I
beer.
actually enjoy beer. Like the taste of beer,
Mhm.
it went from disgusting to me to I can bear it to it's not bad to this is damn good. And as your standards rise, you realize that like yes, bad beer still sucks. That watery
Yeah,
stuff, the really cheap stuff that you get in college, yeah, it's not good. But if you and again, anyone listening, if you need some advice on good beers, I will hook it up for you.
yeah.
There are some incredible ones out there, and I still to this day, when I go shopping for beer, I almost never get a six pack. I usually go around and pick out one here, one there, and put it together. We have a Total Wine near where I live, and it's basically a Walmart, just alcohol.
Yeah.
And again, it's like you remember that show growing up, where the kids run through the aisles like dumping toys into their cart, and they have to get above a certain value, and they get to keep it all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
It's
was like, well, they had the supermarket version where, which is like supermarket
right.
sweep, but then I remember that one. That was the one where, God, what the hell was the name of that show?
Or it wasn't the whole show, right? It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like they
They
had
they
to win the show,
they
and
had to
then they
win the
got to
show, and then they got the chance to go through and then basically shopping spree for like a minute and go after whatever they want.
anything they could fit in there. So
Yeah.
that's the way I feel in there. If those bottles wouldn't break, I'd be running down the aisles throwing it in because that's love. But let me go ahead and get on this last one here because so I said Prague, Iceland, and Belgium. I'm going to move away from Europe because, and I don't want to say. I mean, yeah, I was in Tokyo and I was in Bali as well. Bali was incredible. I almost want to put that one, but um, I'm gonna say mm, 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 mm. Turkey was incredible too.
Ooh, Turkey was good. I only spent like I spent like 3 days total there. Both of them were extended layovers, but my experience in Turkey was fantastic. Both with Madeline and and who did I go to?
Jody, Jody.
Jody. Yeah, it was Jody. Yeah. So with Madeline and Jody, and it was just fantastic. Like the food is fantastic in Turkey. That's
Yep,
underrated.
definitely.
Yeah, that is definitely underrated. But like the tourist locations, we went. I with Madeline, I went to like the Blue Mosque and some other
Oh
places. Just
yeah,
walking around just was great. In Old
the
City in
Hagia
Turkey.
Sophia.
Yeah, Hagia Sophia was like right there, and
Dude, we went to a spa inside the bottom floor of it,
uh
and this was like, I mean, it was an incredible experience. It's a little weird to walk around just naked in front of a bunch of other dudes. I never did sports in high school because I weighed, 25 cents, whatever. But when we were in there, you're, I mean, it's just marble everywhere,
hmm
and so it's just warm water and very soothing and relaxing, and yeah, these little dudes that sort of show up and follow you around and help you wash your feet and stuff. It's just strange. You have to sort of like disassociate your concept of what you're comfortable with and what you just say, I'm not in my normal area, so I'm just gonna let things be. And there's nothing, there was nothing sexual about any of it. It was just when in Rome, do as the Turkish do.
Yeah, well, what is it? The Turkish baths. Like, if you were to have gotten, like, the joke is that if you get like a Turkish massage, like, they don't really actually massage you. They actually just beat the living crap out of you.
Oh yeah,
Like,
and actually, a true Thai massage is like that. If you
yeah.
go to Thailand, you ask for a massage, be careful, okay? But if you ask for if you go to a genuine Thai place that's for their real massage,
hmm
I had this one little old lady. I don't know if you've ever hurt so bad that you sweat, but I was sweating specifically due to pain that she was putting me in. The next day it felt great, but in the moment, she was laughing because of the sounds I was making. The next lady over was laughing, who's getting her massage, and my wife was laughing because she's getting her massage. They were all laughing at this poor, poor white man getting stretched and broken by a little old Thai lady.
That's so great. It's what is it? What I find massages relaxing. Speaking of which, I'll probably get one tomorrow. But the funniest are like when people are so relaxed that you fall asleep, and even though like they're being very sort of vigorous on your back or your legs or something like that, it's just you've just so come at pause and you're just like, I've fallen asleep. I've fallen asleep multiple times getting a massage, and I snore really badly, and like what'll happen is I'll wake up and my masseuse will be like in hysterics because it's almost as like it's like, well, wait, what's going on? I was like, what happened? It's like, you fell asleep, you snore so loud. And it's like, oh god.
um, so yeah, again, I have like if we're talking about travel and weird, funny experiences, I got a billion of them. But
Yeah.
um, our friend Brad, this guy, for the listeners, he is a southern boy, but totally into punk rock, covered in tattoos, and total softy. So
Hmm.
if you looked at him, you might be scared, but if you talk to him, you realize that like he's genuine and kind and honest and all that, and he's just into the punk scene. We go to China, and he comes visits me there, and we go in for massages, and the we're getting on the tables, whatever like that, and taking off our shirts and getting into their whatever clothes. The girls come in for the massage and they see that he's got his nipple pierces and they both shriek and scream and then like they all they didn't even want to touch him. They were like freaked out that he had piercings, and they, instead of like massaging him, they just put their hands into a towel and used and massaged him with the towel rather than touching his skin because of his nipple piercings. And they
Really?
were talking all kinds of mess about him in their local dialect.
Oh God. I didn't know that story. It's like
Yeah.
I know the outcome because that was during the World Cup way back when,
Oh yeah.
and I remember like you guys did like uh it was the only reason I remember the story is because you were so prideful about the fact that you never imbibed too much to vomit, and it was the first time you
Right.
ever did it, and it's just like oh. It's like it took a foreign country and a power hour to actually do it.
Yeah. Tell you what, man. Any place that says free vodka for the next 30 minutes, just leave. There's nothing good that's going to happen there, okay? Anyways, yeah, that was. He got it worse than I did, though, so it's
I
okay.
know. It's like and your sister ended up with like a freaking like parasite, didn't she?
Nah, that was her story. She just didn't have the constitution for China. China's not for everyone. You can go to Shanghai and be, and if you go to what used to be Hong Kong, um,
Yeah.
that's it's not even really stepping out of another country. It's you can basically live there pretty easy. But if you get into China and you travel in China, as soon as you get out of the main cities, it gets real. I mean,
Hmm.
nobody's going to speak your language, and you won't easily be able to find food that you recognize. And your concept of Chinese food, well, it's just wrong. You don't know, you're going to look at what's on the plate and you're going to say, that's Chinese food? Really? And unless you can sort of suspend these things and say, I'm going to give this a try and let it be whatever it is, you'll probably feel a little queasy and ill. And that's what happens. She threw up in the back of a taxi because of it, because it was just too much for her to bear. And my mom was so embarrassed that she had thrown up in this guy's taxi because he's freaking out and he doesn't speak English and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
doesn't know what to do. And my mom just pushed whatever Chinese currency she had in her hand in her pocket right into his hands and said sorry, and we all just piled out and got into another taxi. So uh, while it does sound like that would be a kind of a bad situation for the taxi driver, he probably made you know couple days worth salary,
Yeah.
and he probably went over and paid someone else to clean it out for
Yeah,
like
yeah.
50 cents or something. So, um, yeah, in the end, everyone should have been happy there. But yeah, it was hard for her. So, I'm here sitting on this empty fourth slot here.
I know
Um,
you've got a tough choice, don't you? You've
yeah, I
been
just got two
we've
choices.
talked around like three countries and they
Yeah,
still haven't occupied your fourth spot.
let's throw Australia on there because that's
Oh,
pretty awesome.
Aussie land.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. We went over there, landed in Sydney, spent a couple days there, rented a car, got to drive on the opposite side of the road for the first time, which was an experience for me and all the people that I accidentally drove into oncoming traffic towards. Like when you're on the road driving in a lane that you're not used to, if you're just in it, everything makes sense and you're fine. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is you stop off, grab lunch. When you get back out into the car and you drive and get back on the road, you're going to follow your natural inclination, which is get back into the right lane. And so I pull out of a parking lot and then I see the cars coming towards me. I'm like, oh, right. Slide over. So that happened like 3 times, I think.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but yeah, so I drove from. No, it wasn't. We flew into Sydney and then we flew again down to Melbourne, right?
Mm-hmm.
And stayed in Melbourne. I enjoyed Melbourne more than Sydney actually, um, but we ended up renting a car and driving all the way down the southern coast to kind of the central part, about an 8-hour drive, and stayed in a little hotel there. Went out and saw these um, rock structures in the water that were really beautiful. Caught a sunset there, and then, oh Lord, I don't think I told this story yet, but we're at, hey, 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 nice work.
I know, right?
Yeah, okay. Enhance,
Enhance.
enhance. So,
So I'm around Melbourne. Where are you right
okay.
now?
I'm okay. I'm looking at here at I'm actually using the Twitch screen here to see what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're in Melbourne. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so go down along the coast to the left, all the way down until you get to Port Campbell.
Port Campbell.
I think
Is
it's actually up a little bit. I think
is it? Is it?
is that
Okay.
Port? What?
There's Port Lonsdale right there.
No, no, keep going.
Is it? Is it on the east
No,
coast or the west coast?
it's I think it's kind of central.
Is it?
I mean, it's like almost like if you could type in Port Campbell, then it would just take you there.
Yeah, I think I'll. Yeah, that also works. There we go.
Yeah,
There we go. Port Campbell. It
yeah,
is. Oh wow, that's on the far side right there. So there we are.
yeah.
Port Campbell,
So
Australia.
okay, so I drove all the way down along the coast, beautiful coastline drive,
Mm-hmm.
and then inland a little ways, just so we could, because like you could stay along the coast and it'd go a little bit faster, but we thought we'd add an extra hour, hour and a half to go up into the hills a little bit, and not big hills, but just see some of the natural scenery.
Mm-hmm.
Just gorgeous. And um, down there at Port Campbell, you'll see that they have these beautiful. I mean, the picture there that's up on the left side of the screen right now, I have that picture. I took it with my phone. It's just
Oh really?
my version of it. Yeah. And there are also these, I don't know what they call them, the 12 apostles or something,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just rocks sticking up out of the ocean, but they line up perfectly on the coast, and they're really gorgeous. A lot of fun. I recommend, if you guys decide to do this, you do it with multiple drivers, because it kind of sucks to drive 8 hours, go to sleep, and then the next day drive 7.5 back or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Especially
it is a long drive.
if your wife forgets her expensive sunglasses there after you've been driving for an hour, and you have to go back and get them and then start it over.
Oh. Mm-hmm. She's watching on YouTube.
Yes, probably. Yeah, I'll probably get beat up later. Um, but yeah, I mean, Australia, the people are very kind, and uh, money goes far there. They've got all the things that make you comfortable, and then a few that you never had before. Uh, Great weather. Actually, that last one with the bench, that's
Mm-hmm.
across the street from the little
That
spot
one
we
right there.
stayed in.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so I think this is the shot of the apostles right here. If you go through there and you see those little things that,
Mm, so this is the those are the that's part of it. Like one,
yeah,
two, three, four. Yeah. So there's 12 of them in total. Um,
nice.
so yeah, getting there can be expensive. I mean, we did some cool stuff over there. This is back when I had money. Um, we we paid to walk across their main bridge, and I don't mean the ground. We walked all the way up. The
Oh, you
middle
the Sydney Harbor Bridge?
gating
You
of the
mean?
thing. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. You can walk all the way up it and across it and down the other side. And meanwhile, all the traffic's going on beneath you
Mm-hmm.
to get a good angle of the city, and that's a lot of fun.
So
Uh,
here is Sydney. Here is the Sydney Harbor Bridge. This is
yeah.
the bridge that he's talking about. Oops.
Yes, indeed. That's the one. You see those arches? We were walking up on top of those. We had
Yeah.
to have like climbing gear where you're like locked into it and you got a little guideline. But up where that flag is on the top, that's where you cross over to the other side and come back down. Um, an experience, but they make you pay for it. So
Yeah. I hear it's
if you
not
got
cheap.
money to burn,
It's definitely
no,
not cheap, but like the photos are just unreal. They look really cool. Cuz like
yeah.
the
And if you're there for New Year's and that kind of thing, they do amazing fireworks displays off the bridge.
yeah, I mean
One of the
like
best ones.
people yeah, so it's like, the opera house is like pretty close to the bridge, right? Like you can
Yes,
actually
the
see.
Opera House is another beautiful thing. I don't remember if we had to pay for it or not. I think it's like $20 to go see it. That was
Oh,
also an incredible tour. You get to go into the various rooms and you can see the acoustics and take it all in. It's
He- Here,
really,
if
really
you look
nice.
right now, here I've got the stairways that
Yep.
you can see. So like you can see like the walkway that goes up the bridge. It's like who thought that? Oh, you know what? The Sydney Harbor Bridge is such a cool thing to take a photo of. Let's add stairs and then turn it into a tourist attraction where you can walk on top of it. That man is
Well,
a
I mean, that
marketing
stuff was
genius.
already there, I think. I think
Yeah.
that's for the people to go there and do their work. But the idea that you're going to have people like tourists going over it, I mean, if you can cover the insurance, I guess you can and get people to show up and do it. But it was full, and the one after us was full, and the one after that was full. So they're getting their money.
Did you have any issues? Because I have slight acrophobia when it comes to this stuff. I don't have any issues flying in planes where I know that like you're supposed to be flying and doing this stuff. But like when it comes to like edges of buildings or looking over cliffs or something like that, not necessarily my cup of tea. Do you have any issues walking up these stairs and like the heights that you were getting on?
Nope. I If I know that there's a safety measure and I'm following it, I'm good. So like
Mm.
I had a carabiner. I was connected to my belt, which is my harness, whatever, and I was connected to the line. Every once in a while, you stop, unconnect, connect or disconnect, and then connect to the other side. In those moments, maybe you could, but I was standing still. It wasn't like the thing was shaking, or you could feel a little movement, but it wasn't. There was no risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if it starts to rain, then then you might be a little be afraid of slipping or something. But I do get that feeling you're talking about, the vertigo kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
that's if I'm getting close to the edge of a cliff and I'm not connected to anything, right? I won't. I don't want to go look over the edge or anything. That'll throw me off. But this was pretty easy stuff.
Hmm. So
Um, I also went to the Quay, which
what
is
is
a very, 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 very expensive restaurant. The most expensive restaurant I've ever been to. Um, and Emily and I had a nice, I guess this was our anniversary dinner there. I almost would, oh, sorry, the Key. Sorry, not the Quay,
the
the
the key?
Key.
The
Yeah.
key?
And I ended up, uh, eat, again, I don't think it was as much of a meal as it was an experience
Uh huh.
because the things they do with the food there, you're kind of like half amazed at what's happening inside your mouth and happening on the plate. And it's not like you leave there feeling like, oh, I had a full meal and everything was good. You're having like essence of this and seafoam froth, this vegetable grown in the highest mountains of Tibet and grilled on like volcanic rock by it's just all kinds of weird stuff like that. It was very good, but just when you left, you're kind of like, what just happened to me? What just happened to my bank account?
Okay, so I think that was it this one right here that I've got featured on. It says Quay
It's
Restaurant.
right on the harbor. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Okay, it does have $4 signs next to
I
the.
know. Those are my dollars. Those $4 signs, that's from my account.
So yeah, my friend actually lives in Sydney, and she's been trying to get me to visit her forever, and I've just never been able to, make it to that side of the world on an easy in an easy way. So it's just like hey, if ever in Sydney, drop by. I would love to actually go down there because Australia would be one. The problem with Australia that I have is that everything there is trying to kill you. So like you were going into like north uh, of the port city and going in snakes, spiders, anything that has venom in it in Australia will kill you, which is also makes me give pause. But of course, yeah, what are the odds of something actually killing you in Australia? And then you watch the Discovery Channel for a little bit, and you're like, I'm not going to Australia. I would rather
Yeah,
go
but that
here, which is New Zealand, where nothing will try to kill you.
yeah, but like, I mean, for all the stuff that you see on that, it's like all those shark shows. Like, the fear is there because it's on TV and it's in front of you. But how many people live in Australia? How many of them died from that? Like, what could the danger really be? If you're living in the outback, sure, you might have
Hmm.
issues, but most people are just in their houses and doing their normal thing. What we're looking at, that sort of east southeast coast. That's a comfortable area. You're not really going to deal with much. We did pass some roadkill on the
Hmm.
side of the road, like kangaroos, which is kind of
Oh,
messed up. I know it's pretty messed up, and people are really protective of them. If you hit one, you're supposed to report it, but I don't know. Uh, Interesting, anyways, though.
yeah. I know that the koala population is really struggling too because they're literally suffering from lack of environment and chlamydia. So
Yep,
suppose it,
a lot of
yeah.
STDs. They also are so tired all the time because
Mm.
eucalyptus has something that keeps them sleepy, so they
Mhm.
sleep most of the day. Depending on where you visit in Australia, certain provinces you're allowed to go to little koala farm type things and
Mhm.
hold them and pet them and things like that. Where we were when we visited the koalas, we could walk up to them, see them very closely, take our pictures, but we were not allowed to hold them, and that made us a little bit sad.
Yeah, you make shad koala.
They are
But yeah,
cute though.
yeah. I mean, like, it's always interesting when you go on those little nature things and you see the animals and stuff. I remember a couple of our friends was they were traveling around the world doing their world traveling thing, and they went to southern China and was able. I think uh, she has a great photo of a smiling panda while she's hugging it, and you're not really supposed to touch pandas or anything
Oh
like that.
yeah, you got to pay big money or know somebody to get in there and do that.
Yeah, exactly. And she got in there into the reserve, and there's a great photo of a panda with a giant smile and her just giving it a giant hug. It was one of the greatest. I thought it was one of the best panda photos I'd ever seen. But I know that her current husband now had to have paid a ridiculous amount of money
Yeah,
to
I
do
think it's
that.
like $200 a person or
It,
more now,
yeah,
and sometimes they won't even let you if there's any scare of disease or anything like that. They won't let people in.
they want people in.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's in Sichuan, and they have their own like panda conservatory there. We actually had plans to do it. Emily's dad knew someone who
Hmm.
might have gotten us in and let us pet them, but it just, we had so many places to visit. Going to China seemed like something that we would just naturally do later on. So uh, we just would go to other countries instead.
Yeah. Well, in that particular case, I completely understand that. And China's huge too. Like if you look at
Yep.
the map at like where all these cities are and what you're going to have to deal with, it's like Sichuan is right there on the edge of like established China. So like what's the farthest city is like Chengdu, which is like right there in Sichuan, but that's like the biggest city pretty much going out west.
Yep.
And
And
so,
if you're going to Tibet, oftentimes you'll go there and then jump off from there to go up to Tibet.
hmm.
Um, I took, uh, I flew there right before they opened up the train that now goes up there.
Yeah,
So they didn't have a train when I first went there. And uh, it's funny enough when we were talking earlier about how, what was it? What did we say? Like 64% of the
yeah,
people in the U.S. have never been outside the country, and 11% have never been outside their hometown. Uh, a lot of the Chinese people that I met during my travel and while I was teaching there had not seen nearly as much of China as I had, because again, it comes down to whether you got money and you got time, and oftentimes those things you either get one or the other. You know, they
yeah,
work hard.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, they work hard, and a lot of them don't get paid very much. It's slowly changing, but like, yeah, I mean, like the country is huge, so there's so much of it, and like if you look at the road network alone, that is insane considering what they've done. Like the amount of infrastructure investment that the Chinese have done on the eastern side of China is just ridiculous. Like I was watching I love like infrastructure documentaries for some stupid reason or another. But I was watching the documentary about the high speed train that goes from Hong Kong to Shanghai that you can do in like 4 hours or something like that, or not 4 hours, 8 hours or something like that. And it's just like,
Yeah.
and it just goes right up the coast from Hong Kong all the way to Shanghai, and it's just like holy crap, and like there, and that's like that is one of the newer high speed trains. But they've had high speed trains going from like Beijing to all the different cities and stuff like that, so that people don't even need to fly anymore. You've got like high speed rail connecting a whole bunch of cities now, and it's not even something that the U.S. has, which is crazy. So.
Right, but I mean, I can't speak of it how it is today, but I know that when I was there and the high-speed trains first came out,
Mm-hmm.
they had issues. The people that were not trained to use them, and they had like a minor incident, we could say a minor incident, which was swiftly covered up. Um, and so then, whenever we traveled, if you got on the high-speed train, you went the same speed as other trains. They ran it slow,
Oh, so they just
which
didn't tell you.
which
Yeah.
it was much nicer, like living quarters and stuff on it,
Mm-hmm.
sleeping quarters. But it just sucks. It just sucks to be on a train for 12 hours when people smoke and put their feet in your face and
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, like if you're in
it,
one of those, yeah, exactly. So like, unless
right.
you
If
have
you're
like,
gonna be, you pay that for the best cabin you can, right? It'll
mhm.
save you from getting your stuff stolen too.
Yeah, yeah, it's like it's just as crazy. Like stuff gets stolen out of trains in Europe, stuff gets stolen out of trains in China. You know where stuff doesn't get stolen is Japan. Gotta love those people. Swear to God, like you take like was listening to uh facts about the Shinkansen, which is the Japanese high speed train, and like the amount of people that it takes a year, it's something is like 150 million people uh, over the span of like 3 years take the Shinkansen in Japan is sort of crazy. And they at one point, I think just recently, they were saying that a high speed train that goes all the way down to like Kumamoto, which is like in the very southern island in Japan, will leave Tokyo every 4 minutes. That is insane. It's like the frequency of the high speed trains, like in Japan, are just
Yeah,
insane. Yeah,
and it's not like 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Like they go on the dot. They're
yeah,
really
yeah,
perfect with the timing.
yeah. They measure their delays in seconds, which is unheard of in any other country. But they take pride in the fact that you are going to make it wherever it says. If it says that you're going to get to Osaka in at 5:35, you'll get there at 5:35. It might be 5:35 in 5 seconds, uh, but it'll be 5:35, and it's like,
And if they're late, they will apologize on the speakers and bow to
yeah.
you and say sorry. Like that's something too.
No, well, they also have on the local trains, if they're ever late, they have these little notes that you're allowed to give to your boss to explain why you were late to work that day. And those notes will say, it's like, please excuse. It's like the old like the parents' notes. It's like, I didn't go to school because I was sick, but it's a note from the train saying, uh, please excuse him because the train today was delayed or late. And arrived at the station at this particular time, as he took the normal train at this particular hour, so it was not his fault. And it's accepted. If you're a boss in Tokyo and you get one of these notes, it's like, oh, okay. It's like, it's not your fault. Okay, go
Nice.
ahead.
I'd steal a couple extra ones just in case.
Well, of course we would. Japanese are so honest; they would never do that. So it's like it
Yeah.
is just it's so funny. So, but this has turned into a travel log as opposed to where this has gone. So I think this is interesting. I love talking about different countries in the world and the little intricacies. So there, if you had to travel one place, last question, next place that you would want to go, where would it be in the
I
world?
gotta go to South America, man. I have not been, and so I mean, do I have to follow the laws? Like,
What do you mean you
I
have
mean,
to?
am
Currently,
I?
Brazil is on fire right now. Like, did you
Yeah,
see
no,
that?
it's
Like,
really disappointing. It's
it's
really
crazy.
disheartening.
Yeah. It's like the president down
Um,
there is saying that it was leftists who did it because they wanted to complain of the state of the Amazon. It's like, and they were the ones who set it on fire. It's like this guy is just as insane as a certain president we know. But
yeah, and for all we know, this dude lit it on fire and started blaming someone else.
that's exactly.
It's just, but the problem is that's a lot of the oxygen in the world is coming from that rainforest. So things are already bad enough with climate change. This kind of thing is gonna push it and make it worse. Um, Hopefully they get them out because that
Yeah.
is, with the deforestation they're already doing there, they're already messing it up.
Yep.
I mean, again, I would go to almost any country down here. I've always wanted to go to Argentina. I've always wanted to go to Chile. Uh,
If we
I
go to
could go.
Chile, I have a friend that I used to work with that would definitely give us a tour of Santiago in that
Cool.
area. So
Yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah.
So summer
I
skiing
also
is what we should do. Is go
would.
down into June when it's winter down there and go skiing in in southern Argentina, which I hear is
Nice.
particularly awesome.
Yep.
Hmm.
I met some urologists who have a home in Argentina and go skiing a lot. They invited me down. This was years ago, but maybe find them out.
Yeah,
Um, I would want to go to Colombia. I don't know how super safe it is, but hear great things about that.
I think Colombia is better now. It's Venezuela that you should not
Yeah,
go to right now.
right.
Poor those poor people are. Toothpaste costs like 150 whatever million
Yeah, it's
of whatever
messed up.
the dollars in there. So it's like hyperinflation run amok. That place is bad shape right now.
And honestly, I mean, this is not South America, but Cuba would be amazing. I just don't know
Yeah, have they
what
opened up
our
like they
situation.
have flights and stuff
I
there
think
too?
they opened up and then they closed it off since
Hmm.
the Big Orange got in charge. Now it's closed off.
Yeah, watch. Well, if a blue gets in, it'll be opened again, and then another
Yeah,
red
we'll
comes in,
see.
they'll close it down again. So
Well,
it's
there's
like,
no real reason at this point. There's no reason for us to have any issue with them. Uh, but I hear that you can go into Mexico and then fly from there, or even fly down to Venezuela and then go up from there.
yeah,
So
there are
there are
multiple ways to
ways.
get in. You can go from Canada. You can literally fly
Yeah.
from Canada to Cuba because they have like was it the snowbirds in Canada apparently like to vacation in Havana. So
Yeah, I just don't like it bothers me on some level to go north and then south. Like I don't like to go in the wrong direction
hmm,
before. So I'd probably maybe go through Cancun or something stupid like that.
yeah, that'd be fun. All right. Well, you know what? We've taken about an hour's time from people, and I think we're just going to go ahead and end it right there. This travelogue edition of Twitchline, I think, pretty good. Mentioning a lot of countries. If anybody is interested in going to the countries that we mentioned, definitely you will have a good time. There is nothing, I think, terrible about any of the favorites that we picked of countries that we went to visit. All of those places were amazing. So um, take that under advisement if you're trying to look for a place to go on vacation, honestly. So they were absolutely fantastic. Any final thoughts before I close up the show?
Oh no. Yeah. So I do recommend that if anyone has the opportunity to do some traveling, that you should. If you have any reservations, a little bit of reading, and just looking on forums and stuff, seeing other people's experiences, you'll see that while there are things that to be wary of, there's nothing really to be afraid of.
Mm,
Even single women traveling alone, you can find places that you can go and have some amazing adventures and not necessarily worry about the horror stories and stuff that they make into really crappy B movies about.
yeah.
Um, I would say if you are here tonight listening to us and you don't know kind of what we're about, most nights we're on here, we're talking about relationships. We go onto Reddit and discuss people's problems, trying to give them solutions, and go into further detail than just the little one line or two lines that most people get in response to their issues. So, if you have personal issues, we can definitely help you out with those as well.
Yep.
And then that's usually Wednesday night. Sunday night we are coming strong through here with a deeper dive into a specific topic related to love and relationships, and we stay on one topic the whole time and really kind of flush it out and share our own personal experiences. And anyone who shows up, feel free to just speak up and chat, or you can even send us an email here at twitchlinelove@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter at Twitchline, or check out our library of content in YouTube. Again, Twitchline. And also, if you're on the go and you're looking for a little blip to listen to, you can do it through YouTube, or you can look for us on SoundCloud, where we take each of individual topic and we'll put it up there, and you can just flip that on your way to work, on your way home, or in the evening if you're just sort of hanging out. Let's do it then. Uh, Z, I sort of stole your clothes here
I
for the
know.
show.
What am I
When
gonna
did somebody
say
do this?
now?
I don't know, man. Pop quiz, hot shot.
But that is going to do it for us. Uh, Tim there mentioned all of the socials, but I am Z. I am the co-commentator and co-host here today. But we'd like to thank you for joining us here for our Freeform Thursday here on Twitchline. As he mentioned, join us on Sunday for our Sunday Focus segment, and join us on Wednesdays where we handle Reddit's questions and we go deeper into what is ailing the people in the relationship subreddits. But for Acorn, I'm Hodo. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
Good night, everyone.